UFC 319, Dricus Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev is a little over a week away, and we are going to discuss how good UFC 319 is. I can finally be excited. There's too many people always like, Joey, why are you complaining about the UFC? Because I'm not one of these gambling bros. I'm not one of these gambling bros who likes to pretend like they're super hardcore because they like Apex events, okay? I complain because I want a better product from the UFC. And luckily, UFC 319 Du Plessis versus Chimaev for the middleweight title is an absolute banger of a card. And I would argue, best UFC card of 2025. And when you look at 320, you look at 321, you look at 322. Well, we don't really know 322 that much yet outside the main event. I would argue that this is the best pay-per-view of the year, even looking into the future, at least on paper. Let's talk about the majority of the fights. We're really going to lean heavily on the main event because that middleweight title fight is absolutely amazing. But let's check out the card because there's a lot to discuss. Obviously, man, Du Plessis versus Chimaev. Injected into my veins right now. I cannot wait for this fight. I haven't gotten a feeling like this about a particular fight. I don't remember when the last time I felt the feeling that I feel about Du Plessis versus Chimaev, just because of the sheer matchup, okay? The sheer matchup is like Anderson Silva, Chael Sonnen 2. It's like John Jones versus Daniel Cormier 1. It's like Conor McGregor, Jose Aldo, okay? That's what this matchup feels like. But the mayhem from both of these guys, I know that sounds crazy to even say, just makes it that much more exciting. And we're going to come back to the main event, of course. That's the last thing we're really going to talk about. But man, what a banger main event. I mean, it's everything you could possibly want in a UFC main event for a pay-per-view. For a pay-per-view, you know. Pantoja, Kaya Sakura pay-per-view main event. Dustin Poirier, the dead corpse of Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway. That's a pay-per-view main event for a fake-ass BMF title, which is even faker because Holloway ran away from Ilia Topuria when they fought. But let's go through the card because I think there's a lot of people saying, look, the main event's good, but what about the rest of the card? And I would argue the rest of the card is pretty damn good, okay? Co-main event. Let's talk about the co-main event, boys. Recently announced Lerone Murphy versus Aaron Pico. Now, I would agree with you if you're like, what the hell? Aaron Pico, a UFC debutante, making his debut on a mega pay-per-view co-main event. Listen, the UFC likes these wrestling bros, okay? They like the wrestling bros. Aaron Pico has a name outside of the organization. They're bringing him in and throwing him to the wolves, which is Lerone Murphy. He was originally supposed to fight Movsar Evloev on the Rainer Day Ritter Robert Whittaker Abu Dhabi card. That got canceled. They had to find a new co-main event for UFC 319. They said, let's put Pico versus Murphy. I understand, you know, this isn't like your bona fide pay-per-view co-main event. But at the end of the day, I love this matchup because I feel like Pico is overrated. Lerone Murphy is criminally underrated. People act like he's boring. They act like he's another Leon Edwards because he's from the UK. He's undefeated. He's 16-0. He's taking on Aaron Pico, or the silhouette of Aaron Pico. Apparently, UFC can't update their website. And I love a matchup where you have a guy that's overrated, in my opinion at least, or overhyped, and you throw him right in the deep end. I love when they took O'Malley and they threw him to Petr Yan. Now, Petr Yan beat him 30-27 and was brutally robbed, but that's besides the point. I love when there's a guy that gets a lot of fan hype. The UFC really gets behind him with a promotional push. Pico, oh man, he wrestled in college, man. He's the next Penn State boy. And he has a name from Bellator. He has a name. He's coming over. And like, you know what? Let's book you against Lerone Murphy. Let's book you. I didn't love the Movsar Evloev matchup because Movsar should have been number one contender. And I'll tell you right now, I know this doesn't necessarily pertain to the card, but if Lerone Murphy, Aaron Pico, co-main event of UFC 319 means Movsar Evloev is getting his rightfully earned title shot against Alexander Volkanovski, I love this even more. Love it even more. But anyway, we have Murphy, who's super well-rounded, who's undefeated, who's looked incredible. I know Pico isn't probably the matchup he wanted, but we get to find out, is Pico good or not? You know, I know people are acting like he's elite, man. He's gonna expose the featherweight division. He was losing to scrubs in Bellator. I swear, there's a contingent of fans who sit around and like see guys they've heard their name before come from other organizations. They're like, man, I'm so hardcore, man. Pico's the real deal, bro. Patchy Mix, bro. And in some cases, they're right. With this case with Aaron Pico, I think it's a little bit over-exaggerated, but I love it, man. I love it because we get to find out against a legit elite featherweight in Lerone Murphy. Love this co-main event. Is it co-main event worthy? Not necessarily, but it's still a very, very quality fight. I mean, Murphy is ranked number 6 currently in the UFC rankings, which seems about right, even though I don't believe in the rankings. Anyway, featured fight on the card currently, according to the UFC's website, we have Geoff Neal versus Carlos Prates. Now, I know Carlos Prates just got dog walked by Ian Machado Gary, but besides that, listen, man, Carlos Prates is still a very good fighter. I know a lot of people hate Ian Machado Gary, therefore they act like he isn't as skilled as he actually is. He stepped in on short notice. He beat Carlos Prates. Prates had a moment in the 5th round. Fair enough. But Prates was kind of screwed, man, because he was supposed to fight Geoff Neal originally. Geoff Neal pulled out. At least I believe he was supposed to fight Geoff Neal originally. Geoff Neal pulls out. They're like, you know what? Let's book you against Ian Machado Gary on short notice. That's not very good for Carlos Prates' career, having to fight at the very top of the division rather than kind of getting that slow rise up the ranks. In this matchup against Geoff Neal, that's kind of what he's getting here. This is a winnable matchup for Carlos Prates, but Geoff Neal, he's kind of hit or miss, but he's a very good fighter. This isn't an easy win for Carlos Prates. Like a lot of times you'll see a guy that's starting to get a little bit of hype from fans, and next thing you know, they're booking him like the easiest possible matchups. They're clearly trying to get him wins, and it's like, oh, we all know who's going to win this fight, but we still have to watch it. And basically it's the UFC padding their record and looking to get a highlight reel KO. This is not the case at all. Geoff Neal is a legit fighter. Geoff Neal is not easy to finish. Geoff Neal has really good boxing. He has nasty power, and he's not easy to take down. Now, Prates doesn't want to take you down anyway because Prates is primarily a striker, but this is a matchup where we're going to truly find out how good is Carlos Prates, because taking on Ian Machado Gary short notice is, you know, it's hard to really grade that performance that much. I mean, it wasn't like the craziest short notice ever, but also Gary is at the top of the division. At least in my opinion, he's a future champion. I think he should be fighting for a belt rather soon, depending on how the division plays out. But now we get to see him against kind of a habitual stepping stone in Geoff Neal. And I just love this matchup. It's going to be primarily on the feet. Both guys are elite striker. Both guys have finishing ability. And I just love this matchup. It's a great featured fight. It's a great featured fight. Anyway, also Geoff Neal ranked number 11. Prates ranked number 12. Makes perfect sense with the UFC rankings as well. If Prates beats Geoff Neal, he's kind of earned himself an actual shot at the legit top 10 of the UFC welterweight division without it being on short notice. Next fight down the card, Jarrett Cannonier versus Michael Venom Page. Now, I got to be honest. For some reason, I don't care about this fight, but it is an interesting matchup. I'll say that. Jarrett Cannonier, obviously, been a habitual top 10 middleweight, kind of on his decline, you know, has gotten beaten up quite badly by Nasruddin Imavov and Caio Borralho. But that being said, Michael Venom Page getting a win over Sherry Bullet Magomedov isn't that great, but he does have that funky style. So this is an intriguing matchup in the fact that it's almost like the UFC just pulled names out of a hat and booked this matchup. Very bizarre fight, but at the end of the day, it's an interesting matchup. Again, for some reason, I don't really care that much about it, but it's two guys who have decent skill sets. They're not scrubs. And what I tune in for is the sport aspect of the UFC. I'm not tuning in to watch two scrubs throw down and what everyone's like, man, that was fight of the year, bro, but they weren't that good. They look scrubby as hell. You could see that at a bar fight down the street. Jarrett Cannonier is still very skilled. Michael Venom Page has that funky striking style. Maybe I don't care about this fight that much because I feel like it could be a stinker because the MVP's weird, like darting in and darting out style. But I see Cannonier taking the fight to him, so it could be a very good fight. but just very weird matchmaking, a matchup that I never thought I would see, and I feel like a lot of people didn't think would happen. But again, with all that being said, this could be a main event of a UFC Fight Night card. You know, probably at the Apex, I would think, if they made this. And it's the 4th fight down of a UFC pay-per-view. And it's still 2 ranked guys, you know. Number 8, Jared Cannonier. I know the numbers don't necessarily matter. I don't even believe necessarily in the UFC rankings. But either way, 4th fight down, we're getting ranked middleweights. Shout out to the UFC for that. And then also opening up the main card. We'll talk about the prelims a little bit in a second. Tim Elliott versus Kai Asakura. Kai Asakura, you know, he has the 1 fight in the UFC. He lost to Alessandro Pantoja. He looked okay in that fight. I mean, it's hard to look good against Pantoja, who is the GOAT at flyweight. But we're going to find out how good he is, because Tim Elliott has a wonky style, man. He's very awkward. He's very herky-jerky on the feet. And we need flyweight contenders. We absolutely need flyweight contenders. So if Kai Asakura can get a win against Tim Elliott, maybe another win, depending on how the division shakes out. Pantoja loses the belt. We got Pantoja versus Van coming up. Kai Asakura could be right back in the mix for a flyweight title shot. I know that sounds crazy, but it's really not that crazy. And also, we don't really know how good Kai Asakura is. He looked good outside the organization, but he comes in and fights Pantoja immediately because of the lack of contenders in the flyweight division. But now we get to see him with a more, you know, telling matchup in Tim Elliott, who's not like the elite of the elite. But Tim Elliott's been around for a while. He's a veteran. He has a decent skill set. He's a weird, awkward style. And this is a matchup where Kai Asakura can go out there and get a highlight reel finish. I mean, Tim Elliott's pretty durable, but also Kai Asakura with his striking can just go out there and put on an aesthetically pleasing performance. And you never, honestly, people don't respect the flyweights at all. They never give them respect. But flyweight fights are always exciting, man. These guys don't run out of cardio. I mean, look at Joshua Van versus Brandon Royval, one of the most exciting fights of the year. It was incredible. So I'm looking forward to this matchup. And again, 2 more ranked fighters. I mean, is this entire card ranked? Am I smoking crack? Oh my. The entire card is ranked. Now, we're going to get to the main event in a second, okay? Because I really want to talk about the main event. I'm not going to spend too much time on the prelims, but these are okay prelims, guys. King Green, Diego Ferreira. I'm not calling him King Green. I didn't mean to do that. This is Bob Green, okay? Gerald Meerschaert, Michaela Olashechek, decent prelim. Jessica Andrade, Lupita Godinez, decent prelim. Chase Hooper against another dead body, Alexander Hernandez, decent prelim. Edson Barboza, Drakkar Klose, good prelim. Brian Battle, Norris Salt, and Ruzabuev. That should be arguably the feature. I don't know if I would say featured prelim, but that's a damn good fight. These prelims, you guys tell me, are these prelims not better than last week's Fight Night card, main card? I think they are. I think these are damn good prelims. I mean, they're not UFC 300 caliber, but these are all interesting matchups. This could build a very solid Fight Night card for the UFC. Obviously, they would have to have a decent main event, but imagine this card, and then you threw at the top like Geoff Neal, Carlos Prates. That's a damn good Fight Night card. I mean, opening up the early prelims is Karine Silva, JJ Aldridge. I know it's women's MMA. I know a lot of people don't like it. This is a decent fight, okay? Nothing that I'm crazy about, but this is a decent fight. So overall, this card is really, really solid. Prelims to the main card filled with actually good talent. And it's crazy that I have to say that, but it's few and far between these days. And then when you take these quality of fights, again, they're not UFC 300 caliber. They're not the craziest matchups of all time. But then you take a very, very solid card, very, very good card, and then at the top of the card, you have a middleweight title fight. Dricus Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. This is all I want. This is all I want. This is the best card of 2025. And I'll say this, and I've said it before on different live streams. All you need is a banger main event and then decent fights below it to make a good card. I know it sounds simplistic, but the UFC will put a shitty main event and then the undercard's mediocre as well. And then sometimes they'll put a banger main event and put the shittiest undercard you've ever seen. I'm thinking of, I think UFC 257, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor, Cowboy Cerrone. They've done it where they're like, oh, we already got a pay-per-view buys in the main event. We don't even care about the rest of the card. It's basically a boxing card from what I've heard. I've never really watched them. Dricus Du Plessis, Khamzat Chimaev is the most intriguing UFC title fight in fucking years. Dricus, he's sloppy as hell. Nobody saw him becoming champion, but now he's defended his belt a couple times. He's defended his belt 2 times now. And he's taking on Khamzat Chimaev, who people thought would be champion years ago. Okay? Undefeated Khamzat Chimaev, who just buzzsawed through Robert Whittaker. A lot of people were doubting him. He went out there, ragdolled Robert Whittaker to the ground and broke his jaw, caved his jaw in, had him frantically tapping, victimized him. And now he's taking on slop champion Dricus Du Plessis, and I don't even mean that as an insult. This guy finds a way to win. He doesn't have the most technical striking. He doesn't have the best BJJ, but he has will to win. And it's so interesting when you have a matchup like this. And I know the typical breakdown is, man, if Chimaev, if Dricus can, if DDP can survive the first round, man, Chimaev's in trouble. I don't buy it. Khamzat cardio narrative is 2 years ago Dricus Du Plessis cardio narrative. I said it. Khamzat has good cardio. Dricus has proven that he has good cardio. Okay, I think it's a bit over-exaggerated actually at this point. But Dricus refuses to quit. Dricus hasn't lost in years. He's never lost in the UFC. He's undefeated in the UFC. And he's going out there and defending his middleweight title against an absolute savage in Khamzat Chimaev, who tries to finish you from the very start of the fight. It's going to be interesting, man. It really is. I'm going to do a full breakdown and prediction of this main event. But from every aspect of this fight, how can you not be interested? It's going to be how Dricus deals with the pressure of Khamzat Chimaev. Does he pressure Khamzat? Imagine Dricus gets Khamzat backing up. How does Dricus deal with the grappling of Khamzat Chimaev? Is he able to scramble up? Is he able to get out of bad positions? Is he able to outstrike him on the feet? Outstriking Sean Strickland, the beta male soy boy who's scared to fight back because you made him cry thinking about his childhood, is different than Khamzat Chimaev trying to walk you down and take your life. And I believe this matchup will make a star, because I do believe, and I've been a big believer in Khamzat Chimaev since 2020, I believe Khamzat Chimaev is already one of the bigger names in the UFC. If he goes out there and let's say he buzzsaws through Dricus Du Plessis, he's going to be the biggest star in the UFC. That is my prediction for that fight. But if Dricus can go out there and imagine he finishes undefeated Khamzat Chimaev, Dricus, Dana White and UFC don't really like him, as I'm stumbling over my words. Dana and Dricus has had a rocky relationship, okay? I know a lot of people don't realize that. I've seen it hinted at in multiple clips from Dana White and Dricus himself, okay? But if Dricus beats Khamzat, if Dricus goes out there and somehow finishes Khamzat, his name and his star power is going to go through the roof. And think about it. Even, there's something for everybody in this fight. Dricus loves kind of talking crap. I think some of the jokes are going to fall flat on the Khamzat Chimaev trash talk from Dricus. It's going to be like, man, you had a cold, man. You had a cold years ago. I think it's going to kind of fall flat. But there's some people that eat that shit up. And Dricus finds a way to make press conferences interesting. He made Izzy cry. He made Sean Strickland cry. He made Sean Strickland try to attack him in a crowd. So if you want like an interesting build-up, you don't just care about the sport aspect of it, skill versus skill matchup, which is what I care about the most. You're going to kind of have an interesting build-up when it comes to like a press conference and some back and forth. Khamzat Chimaev can be interesting on the mic as well. So now, me personally, I don't care about that aspect too much. I just care about skill versus skill. How does this fight play out? But how can you not love this main event? Two elite fighters, both with their own very specific set of skills. Dricus, awkward, unorthodox, refuses to die. I've said in the lead up to this fight, if Khamzat gets him in a rear naked choke, I think Dricus is going to go out cold. If imagine Khamzat gets like an armbar. I don't think Dricus is tapping. Maybe I'm wrong. He doesn't strike me as the type of guy that's going to frantically tap like Robert Whittaker. He would take his jaw collapsing in and try to fight back anyway. But you got Khamzat who bulldozes people. His jiu-jitsu is unbelievable against a guy who has probably the best heart in the UFC, has insane will to win in Dricus Du Plessis. Love this matchup. Overall, Just having this main event is enough alone. But then you take this main event and you put it on top of a card that has quality fight. They don't have to be the best fights ever, but quality fight after quality fight after quality fight after quality fight, and then some decent prelims. In my opinion, I don't care about fights like Dustin Poirier, Max Holloway. That's a bit of an exaggeration that I don't care. But for some fake-ass BMF title, we have two of the best middleweights in the world fighting for the middleweight title. That's a rarity nowadays, okay? And I know you can make a claim for Nasruddin Imavov. Khamzat Chimaev is the #1 contender. So we have a champion fighting a #1 contender. Oh my, that's insanity to me. It's very rare that it happens anymore. It's undeserved title shot after undeserved title shot after undeserved title shot. So getting a deserving contender in Khamzat Chimaev, who ran over Robert Whittaker, who victimized Robert Whittaker, fighting a champion on a decent win streak or on a decent title run, defending his title twice, beat up that beta Sean Strickland, beat up Israel Adesanya, able to finish Israel Adesanya in a very competitive fight. This is just the perfect storm. I cannot wait for UFC 319. And I used to do videos where I would grade the pay-per-views. I honestly should get, that's kind of what this video is. So I'll say this. I'm giving this a 9.5 out of 10. Again, amazing, bona fide, elite title fight, deserving #1 contender, super compelling matchup in the main event, and then quality fights all below it. They don't have to be these insane matchups. They're just quality fights. And then you have that banger main event. This is the best UFC pay-per-view of 2025, bar none. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.